We have neither. Neither today or
Machshirin
Mach-
Dalet Zion we're on.
Machshirin. Okay. Okay. Talent. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Regarding produce that fell into a channel of water, and somehow someone whose hands or tummy stretched out his hand and took it. His hands are tahor, but the produce is tahor. But if he intended that his hands be rinsed, his hands are tahor, but the produce is included in the law of water is praised. Regarding a pot that is full of water, and it was placed in a mikveh, and an avatuma stretched out his hand and inserted it into the pot, and the pot is tameh. If the person was tameh through contact with the source of tuma, the pot is tahor. But as for all other liquids, they are tameh because water does not purify other liquids. Regarding one who fills an irrigation pipe until 3 days have elapsed, it is tameh. Rabbi Akiva says if the water is in the pipe dried up, it is tahor immediately. But if it does dry up, even until 30 days have passed, it is tameh. Okay.
Okay. Um, Eitzim. So you got blocks of wood, and blocks of wood are not susceptible to tumah in themselves. Okay. Shenaflu alehem mashkin and other liquids that were tameh is Gati inserts over here. But some tameh liquids fell onto them. Now the blocks of wood, of course, themselves do not become tameh, but there were other liquids on top. The yardu alehem geshamim, and then it started raining on them. Im Rabu, now if the rainwater that fell on the wood is more than the tameh liquids, then they become tamar, they get nullified in the majority of rainwater. So that means that if subsequently it drips onto some produce from that log, it's tahor, and it's not even b'chiyutan because the rainwater was not intentional; it just came min hashamayim. And if it had been a tameh liquid on there, the tameh liquid would immediately have made a tameh. There's no break in between about leratzon, lo leratzon. It doesn't matter. Tameh liquids make things tameh, whether it's leratzon or not. Okay. Imrabu tahorim. But what happens if he took these blocks of wood outside specifically because he wanted them to get wet, he wanted the rain to fall on them. So then immediately, not only is the rainwater bechiyutan, but afal pisha rabu tameim, because every drop of rain that hits the log is intentional, and as it hits, it touches the tameh liquid, and it becomes tameh. So that immediately is, so you have a situation there where because he was machshiv every drop of rain, it immediately becomes significant, and you can't even have a majority because every drop that hits itself becomes tameh. Okay. Mashkim tameim. What happens if the wood had absorbed these tameh liquids? Okay, so now it's dry on the outside, but it's just right. It's saturated with these liquids inside them. Even if he did put them outside in order to get wet from the rain, they're nonetheless tahor. The water stays tahor, but it doesn't. We don't say it comes into contact with the tameh liquids because it's dry. Okay. But setting them, if you want to start burning them, that he has to do with tahor hands. Why does he have to do that? Because so that his hands should not be matame the rainwater that went onto it, and then the water will come back and be matame the oven. So if he touches right, if he touches with the tameh hands, the water that's on them becomes tameh from his hands, and it goes up to the level of kli rishon. And as soon as it goes into the oven, which is the kli cheres, it'll become tameh from its interior. Okay. Rabbi Shimon Omer, im hayu lachin v'hisikan. If they were wet when he set them alight, v'rabu amashkin hayotzin mehen ala mashkin shebalu tahorim. And the liquid that came out was more than the Rabu Hamashkin Hayot in Mehen Ala Mashkin Shibalu. Hold on, wait, now that sounds like two things that are the same. Just a second. Hayot in Mehen Me'atzma Machmas Lachosam. So first of all, the wood itself has a natural moisture. And then there's the mashkin that they absorbed, which is the tameh stuff. So if there was more of the moisture that's natural to the wood than there was of the tummy liquids that were absorbed. That's so the natural moisture of the wood is like fruit juice. In other words, it's not matame at all. It's not makabel tuma, and it mevatels the other tame liquids in it in a majority. Okay, let's leave it at that. All right, Perik Hay. Misha Tavel ben Nahar. So a guy goes to the river, and he goes into the river to tovel himself, and he is now tahor, and he comes out. And now that he's come out, he wants to go home, and he's going to walk through another river. Okay, so he had to walk through this other river. Now this other river did nothing for him. There was no benefit to him walking through the river because he was already tahor. So the fact that he had to walk through it is not any benefit to him, and therefore any water that clings to him is not b'chiyutan. Okay, tiharu shniyim esarishonim, and so the second water that he walks through is matahir the first water that he came out of, because when he came out of the mikveh, the water that came out with him, that's b'chiyutan, because he intended that. But now that he's going through the second river, the fact it'll wash away all the water from the first one. And that water is not b'chiyutan anymore because he had no benefit of walking through the second river. Dachahu chavero lischaro, the shochro. Sorry. So what happens? He came out of the mikveh, and then his friend was drunk and started pushing him around, and pushed him into the river. And now he splashes in. Okay, so that's once again a case of where it had no benefit. Nobody intended really to have him in the river. It was just a guy who was drunk and messing around with him. And he splashed into the river once again. And also if the drunk guy pushed his animal into the river, there was no intention there. Once again, the second water is matari the first water, exactly like as if he was walking through the second river in the first case. Okay. However, if it was his friend pulling a prank on him, and his friend specifically wanted to see how funny it would be if he fell into the river, now his friend has made it an intentional thing. So when he falls in the river, his friend thinks it's funny, and that water is now intentional.
It's intentional from the guy who pushed him in, but the guy who was
right. That's right. And once you just need one person to make it intentional. Right. Okay. Hashat al Panei Hamayim. Guys makes a raft or a boat, and he's sailing on the water. Oh wait, Hashat. No, is that Hamayim Nitazim Shilova Kavanah? Yes. Yeah, okay. And water splashes from the sides of the boat. Einan b'chiyutan. That's nothing. You don't consider that as b'chiyutan because there's no benefit to the water that's splashing from it. He just wants to sail his boat. However, if he decides he wants to play a game with his friend and splash water on him, once again, that's like the previous case. He intentionally uprooted the water to splash on his friend. Now that water drips onto produce, b'chiyutan. Making a bird in the water. That is kind of like they describe it in the Kahati commentary as like blowing bubbles in the water.
That's what I have here. If someone makes bubbles in the water, right?
Yeah. Okay. Hanitazin ve'es sheba einan b'chiyutan. Whatever splashes out of there and the water itself that bubbles higher than the water level is not b'chiyutan. It's not. So there's no benefit to the uprooting of the water. He's just having fun blowing bubbles, and there's no significance to the water that splashes from there. Okay.
Base hay. In the case of a city in which both Jews and non-Jews reside, and which contains a public bathhouse which operated on Shabbos, if a majority of the population are non-Jews, one may bathe in the bathhouse immediately after Shabbos. But if a majority of the population are Jews, one must wait an amount of time sufficient to heat the hot water. If the population is equally divided, one must wait an amount of time sufficient to heat the hot water. Yehuda says, in the case of a small pool, if an important official is living in the city, one may bathe in it immediately after Shabbos. If someone found in the city vegetables being sold, if a majority of the population are non-Jews, one may buy them immediately. But if a majority of the population are Jews, he must wait an amount of time sufficient so that they could come from a nearby place. If the population is equally divided, he must wait an amount of time sufficient so that it comes from a nearby place. And if an important official is living in the city, one may buy the vegetables immediately after the Shabbos. If one found in that city an abandoned child, if a majority of the population is non-Jews, the child is considered a non-Jew. But if a majority of the population are Jews, the child is considered a Jew. If the population is equally divided, the child is considered a Jew. And Rabbi Yehuda says, we rule on this child based on the majority of those who want to abandon their children.
Kan. Okay, mikvahs. Last Mishnah.
Yeah. If one ate Tameh foods or drank Tameh liquids and then immersed himself and then vomited them up, they remain Tameh because they do not become purified in the body. But if he drank Tameh water and then immersed himself and then vomited up, it's Tahor because it can become purified in the body. If he vomits it up, he is still Tameh and it renders him Tameh. If an arrow is stuck into a person, when it is visible, it intervenes. If it is not visible, he may immerse himself and eat Truma. Okay.
Adonallah, Naseches mikvahs.
And Nida.
Yeah.
Nida Aleph Aleph. Shammai says, regarding all women, the times of discovering and discharge of blood suffice for them. Hillel says they are considered tummy from the time of their last examination to the time of their present examination, even for many days. But the Chachamim say the law is neither in accordance with the words of this one nor that one, or accordance with the words of that one. Rather, 24 hours reduces the time of examination to examination, and from examination to examination reduces the time of 24 hours. Now, any woman who has a fixed period, her time suffices for her. And one who examines herself with examination cloths when she engages in marital relations, this examination is the equivalent of regular examination and reduces the time of 24 hours and the time from examination to examination. What is an example of the law that her time suffices for her? If a woman had been sitting on a bed and handling taharas, and she left the bed and discovered a discharge of each blood, she is tameh, but they are all tahor. Even though the sages say that she conveys tumah retroactively for 24 hours, she begins counting only from the time that she sees the discharge.
Okay. Nagaim, good dalad.
Okay. He then comes to send away the living bird. He does not turn his face to the sea, nor to the city, nor to the desert, as stated, and he shall send the living bird out of the city toward a field. He then comes to shave the Metzorah. The Kohen passes a razor over the Metzorah's entire body, and the Metzorah then washes his clothes and immerses. The Metzorah no longer causes tumah by entering, but he still causes tumah like a sheretz. He is permitted to enter within the wall, but he is banned from the house for 7 days and prohibited from marital relations. On the seventh day, he shaves a second shaving, like the first shaving, washes his clothing, and immerses. He becomes sour from causing tumah like a sheretz, but he's still tummy as one who was immersed on that day. He is permitted to eat the tithe. When the sun sets, he's permitted to eat truma. When he brings his atonement, he is permitted to eat the doshim. There are three stages of becoming tahor for a Metzorah and 3 stages of becoming tahor for a woman after childbirth. 3 must shave, and the shaving is a mitzvah, a Nazir and a Metzorah, and the Levium. If these 3 shave without a razor, or if they left 2 hairs, they have accomplished nothing.
Okay, Adkan.
Okay.
Arachin.
Okay, Vav Hey. Whether one consecrates his property or one vows his own Eric, he has nothing of his wife's clothing or his children's clothing or the dyed garments that he dyed for them or the new ones that he bought for them. Although they said slaves are sold with their garments to enhance their value, for if clothing is purchased for him for 30 dinners, the value increases a mana, and so it is with a cow. If they hold it until the market day, its value increases, and so it is with a pearl. If they bring it up to the large city, its value increases. The temple treasury has only its place and time. One does not consecrate ancestral land less than 2 years before the Yovel, nor does one redeem less than a year after the Yovel. We do not reckon months in respect to the temple treasury, but the temple treasury reckons months. If one consecrates his field at the time of Yovel, he gives it for an area in which his coma of barley may be sown 50 shekels, be sown 50 silver shekels. If there were clefts 10 tefachim deep, or rocks 10 tefachim high, they are not measured with it, and if they are less than that, they are measured with it. If he consecrated it 2 or 3 years before the Yovel, he gives a selah and a undum per year. If he said, I will give the amount for each year in that year, we pay him no heed, but he must give it all at once. This applies to both the owner and any other person. What is the difference between the owner and any other person? Only that the owner gives an additional fifth, whereas another person does not give a fifth.
Okay.
And condition. Okay, hey, cat. The rites of smicha, waving, bringing close, the meats of burning, malika, sprinkling, and receiving pertain to men and not to women, except for the meal offering of a sota and a female nazarite, in which cases they wave them. Each commandment which is dependent on land applies only in the land, and that which is not dependent on land applies both in the land and outside the land, except for Orla and Kalayim. Elias says also Kadash. Whoever fulfills one commandment is benefited. His days are prolonged and he inherits the land. And whoever does not fulfill one commandment is not benefited. His days are not prolonged and he does not inherit the land. Whoever is involved in the study of scripture or Mishna and conducts himself properly will not easily sin. As it says, a three-ply cord is not easily severed, and whoever is involved neither in the study of scripture nor Mishnah and does not conduct himself properly is not part of civilization.
Okay. That's it, yeah.
A man betrothed a woman for himself or through.
No, that's it.
That was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
You sound disappointed.
Yeah, well, I asked. I like those. Okay. Here we go. Anything that was put in hot water before Sabbath may be soaked in hot water on Sabbath. But Shabbos, anything that was not put in hot water before Shabbos may not be rinsed in hot water on Shabbos, except an old salted fish, small salted fish, or a Spanish mackerel, because their rinsing completes their preparation. A person may break open a cask to eat dried figs from it, provided he does not intend to make a vessel. We may not perforate the lung of a cask. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. The sages, however, permit it, but one may not perforate it on its side. If it was perforated, one may not place it upon it. One may not place wax upon it because he smooths it. Rabbi Yehuda says an incident came before Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in Arab, and he said, I fear on his account that he may be liable for a sin offering. We may place a cooked dish in a pit in order that it may be reserved, good water and stale water in order that it cooled off, and cold water in the sun in order that it became warm. One whose garments fell into the warm into the water while traveling may continue to walk in them, and he need not fear. When he arrives at the outer courtyard, he may spend them out in the sun, but not in front of the people.
And actually, the halacha is not like that. You say whatever you can't do, but for Hesi, you shouldn't do B'tzina either. Okay, and we're done.
That was I saw an interesting thing yesterday. I